Rebel Moon um, finally dropped on Netflix. I was kind of anticipating this movie until I wasn't. And let me explain. I I think some people have heard my takes about Zack Snyder's DC movies and assume I hate Zack Snyder. I don't. I think he's a perfectly fine director. He did 300 and The Owls of Ga'Hoole. I like those movies. He's done a couple other things that I would say I enjoy somewhat. Um and so I think Zack Snyder's a moron in the way he talks about the stuff he likes, where he just kind of just comes across as a big nerd that doesn't really put much thought into anything other than it being cool. But that doesn't mean he can't put together a damn good movie. And so, a new Zack Snyder movie, I was kind of excited for. And also, to hear that this was kind of his take on Star Wars, I'm like, okay, we'll see what this is. I enjoyed his last Netflix movie, Army of the Dead or Thieves or whatever the title of that movie was. I think it's Army of the Dead, but it also could be Army of Thieves. I can't remember. So I sat down to watch this movie because I was curious. But before the reason I stopped anticipating it is I was anticipating it because it seemed cool to me, right? Then the reviews came out and the story broke that they have a extended R-rated version, which we already knew about, but I thought they were releasing at the same time, and I was just gonna watch the R-rated version, and they're not now. And the version we're all getting is the incomplete movie. So shit. Here's the thing. This whole thing, if basically, like I just said, what's wrong with this movie is that they cut this movie down so they could do the release the Snyder cut. I don't understand this for a multitude of reasons. First of all, it hurts this movie with audiences and critics, especially not to release that extended version at the same damn time. Second, the release the Snyder cut movement was a movement because we didn't think the cut existed, and the fans got all pissy and were like, put it out. And they finally caved and did. Right? So that's the thing, is the release the Snyder cut movement was a movement, but nobody, I guarantee you, there will not be like shit tons of hashtags of like, release the Rebel Moon extended cut like that. No. Especially since this isn't a DC property that has legions of fans that will jump to it. This is a new original property that I think will definitely have some fans because there's a lot to like in this movie. But I don't know. But let me just talk about what I liked. So the visuals in this movie are pretty good for the most part. There's some of them that are it's kind of interesting. This is like his take on a Star Wars, but a lot of the visuals in this movie feel like something that wouldn't even be in the world of Star Wars. It feels very much its own thing. It feels very unique. And on that, it's got some cool action. Most of it not being as good or really choppy because of the R-rated version not being this version. So I imagine that in the R-rated version it'll be a lot better. And I was kind of engaged in the plot and the story, even though it is a little tropey. Because the plot of this movie is just Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, in a Star Wars type world. So those are the things I liked about the movie. Now, I think that's all fine and dandy. I think you will enjoy this movie if you do decide to watch it. I feel like the best way I think there's two ways to watch this movie, which is that you could watch this version that's out currently, the incomplete version, or you could just wait for the R-rated cut. I just suggest that you do that because there's a lot of plot here. A lot of these characters aren't super interesting. I don't think they're going to be hella more interesting in the new extended cut, right? But I do think they probably had more to their story. The action's really choppy and bad. There's scenes where like there's clearly something dramatic about to be happening, and that's supposed to be shocking, but because the violence isn't there, you're just kind of left like, okay, that person died, I guess. It just doesn't work. I also do think this movie does suffer from Zack Snyderisms, where what I mean by that is Zack Snyderisms are like, his shit is too on the nose. Like the people who are the oppressors in this movie are clearly meant to be Nazis, just like in Star Wars, right? But where like Star Wars comes up with like stormtroopers and they look very unique. Like most people, there are a lot of people who watch Star Wars and don't understand that the stormtroopers are Nazis, right? Because they're able to just be wholly their unique, own cool thing. In this movie, like the oppressors literally look the exact same as Nazis. They just look the exact same as Nazis, like in a way, like the way they dress and everything. It just felt like okay, like everybody else kind of has this like dirty, grimy, lived in work look to them, which I like really liked, and and then you get the like fascist, and they just look like regular Nazis. It just felt like okay, and that's the thing. A lot of Zack Snyder's decisions in terms of story is like the most obvious thing to do with the story, or like the most, um, or whatever he just thinks looks cool without much thought put into it. And sometimes that really works. Like 300 is such a simple narrative that he was able to adapt that really well and just do what he thinks looks cool. Where like something that's a little bit more complex, like his own version of Star Wars, it's got some issues to it. And I didn't hate this movie. I wanted to like this movie more than I did. I really loved Army of the Dead or Thieves or whatever. It's probably one of my favorite. It was one of my favorite movies of last year. I've seen that movie multiple times. It's just a hella fun movie. This, I liked it. I didn't love it. I'm definitely going to watch part 2, and I will probably review the R-rated cuts when they come out. And I have one of the prequel comics pre-ordered that I want to do a video on when that comes out. So it's like I'm still invested in the story. I want to see more of this. It's just this all kind of just come together to make this kind of mess of a movie that I don't understand Netflix's decision to make it this way. In fact, why is there even a PG-13 cut? The only reason I could assume that they were doing a PG-13 cut is sometimes Netflix likes to do limited theatrical releases. So I assumed, okay, we're going to get a theatrical release. But when we didn't get that, which doesn't make sense, because then why do a PG-13 cut? Like, this isn't clearly this is not the version that Zack Snyder wants you to see. Clearly this isn't the version that like the fans want to see. Like, I don't understand. Like, did they want kids to watch this? Because like, what kid wants to watch a 2-hour space epic? I swear to God, so many kids I know nowadays don't even like Star Wars. Like, I don't even understand that mentality. As a kid, I freaking love Star Wars, right? So, I can't imagine them wanting to grab onto Rebel Moon or whatever the fuck. So, I don't know. I just don't get it. But let me know your thoughts. Just like, share, and subscribe. Definitely not for me, this version of the movie.